Good evening, people, and how are we doing today? What's up? So, since we have this second practice session today, so we had this CAT Practice Booster class the last week, and today we are specifically going to work on a reading comprehension passage. I have tried to keep it beginner friendly, but the change, the twist that I have today is that I've brought in some convoluted question stems. So you've noticed that in the last 4 or 5 years, the way the questions were asked by the IIMs have changed, they have evolved, and we of course need to learn to deal with those as well. So I have a passage based on science. I have questions which are in line with the CAT questions where I have tried to keep them reasoning heavy. And the question stems are the ones where the real challenge is going to be. So if you happen to have any question of yours before we start, go ahead, bring that my way. Let's talk about those questions and then we can go ahead and move further. As usual, in case you are joining me for the first time, we will go ahead and proceed in two different rounds. Okay, round one is where you go ahead, read the passage, answer the questions, and I jot down all your answers so that I know which options to talk about later. And in round two, I explain the passage along with discussing all the questions, especially the issues or the challenges that you faced while dealing with those questions. So, okay, this is one question that I do get very often. 6 months enough for the CAT exam? Most of the times, yes. Most of the times, yes. Atharv is in Mumbai attending, partying. Okay, that's really nice, yeah. It's always good to catch up with all our relatives and cousins, particularly. I remember those days, those events very fondly. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin our practice then. So, the passage. And typically, you know that this tells you how many slides the passage is broken into and which slide you are on. So the passage is spread across 4 slides. Once you are done reading this, let me know so that I can take you over to the next one. All yours. Okay, really very nice, huh? A lot of you are already done. Here is the next slide then, 5 seconds, and I change you to the next. All right, so here is the next slide in 5 seconds. And here comes the last slide in 10 seconds. That's the last one, and then we'll start with the questions. Okay, so now that the passage is done, let's go ahead and dive into our questions. So here is your question number 1. I'm starting a timer. So I can't really set up, I can actually set up a timer of 90 seconds, which is what I want, but it's a slightly lengthy process. So I kind of at times avoid it, but let's see. Let's start. Unsulje Jazbat and Kusu. I've noted your questions. I'll talk about them once we have discussed the passage. In the middle of the RCs, if we start getting into some unrelated things, that can make things challenging at times, no? So what's your take on question number 1? Okay, so I see a lot of B's here. Anything else? Because our time's up. So I see lot of bees. All right. So let's hit pause here. Almost 2 minutes to the question. And let me take you to the next one now. So here is the next question. And once again, let's just start a 2-minute timer. We'll stop after 90 seconds. That's quicker. Okay. So Prithvi has chosen D. Kushu, that's your answer to question number 2. Don't forget to add 2 before you answer so that I know it clearly which question we are talking about. Okay, A. So I have 2 A's for question number 2. And a B. C. Okay, so our time's up. Let's head over to our next question now. Let's go. Okay, D is also chosen. That's okay, Atar. We'll definitely go and discuss those. All right. So let's see. So I see quite a few C's here. A B as well. D. All right. तो चारों आंसर गोद 3 आंसर गोद ले लिए गए हैं, सी, बी और डी. Yamini, yes, I mean, I do use all these YouTube sessions for extra practice, and therefore feel more than free to attend these if you want some extra practice. But yes, they are not formally added to the class curriculum. So I predominantly teach the concepts in our sessions, and then we come here and practice more, so to say. And here comes your last question based on the passage. There you go. Let's see. Let's see what you choose now. Okay, so a lot of answers coming in. I noticed A, C, and D so far. All right, Yashika, that's okay. I think you've shared what D as your answer. So let's go. So let's go and start talking about this, but we are starting with the passage. So let's see. So anything that you need to ask about this particular part of the passage so far? So conventional testing can underestimate a student's learning ability. So we test people or students in a conventional way in our school. You've read the rest of the passage, so you know that we are talking about the exams and the grades, etc. So it says that it can underestimate a student's learning ability. So a student's learning ability could be higher, but these methods do not reflect it accurately. In fact, they underestimate it. Sociocultural barriers, test anxiety, and differences in rates of brain development can skew results. So, what leads to this underestimation? Sociocultural barriers. Now, imagine I come from a very small town where my exposure to English was rather minimal. Uh, on the contrary, if somebody comes from a bigger town who studied at English medium schools, their comfort level with English will be higher. So, if both of us are evaluated on the same test, chances are that I may not do very well. But I may have registered significant growth. Though, when you just look at that grade, when you just look at the marks, it may not reflect it correctly. So, sociocultural barriers, test anxiety. Some people do not know how to handle that nervousness that happens in the examination hall. And then differences in rates of brain development. This is particularly true for students in a younger class. You notice in the same class, let's say if I talk about nursery, in the same class, you can have somebody who is 48-month old and you can have somebody who is 60-month old. So at that age, this difference of 12 months can be significant, right? And that can offer tremendous advantage. So these kind of things, these kind of issues may lead to underestimation. Now, in principle, neuroscience tools that allow observation of brain activity might better characterize learning gains, but neuroscience and education have not always formed fruitful partnerships. Great. Let's move on to the next one now. New research that more profitably pairs the two fields. Which two fields? Neuroscience and education. That's the new research suggests that when students use spatial skills in the classroom, spatial is related to space. Okay, so things like location, position, direction, these kind of things. So when they study these in the classroom, the benefits extend beyond spatial understanding to other kinds of thinking, such as mentally deciphering a problem using words. So when you become better at these, the benefits spill over to other areas as well, particularly problem solving. Then the results published on August 10 in Science Advances also show that neuroscience tools in a real world classroom might predict successful learning better than more traditional approaches such as testing and grades. This information could support programs and methods that offer the biggest learning bang for the buck. Okay, fairly easy to understand. As told you, beginner friendly, so to say, as far as the passage goes. Neuroscience research usually requires considerable upfront investments without knowing exactly what the societal benefits will be. So if you want to adopt some kind of, if you want to go for some kind of neuroscience research, you need to commit a large sum of money right at the beginning. And that is also a stage where you won't be able to offer any guarantee of a societal benefit. That research may come to nothing, right? According to Marcus Knopf, chair of experimental psychology and cognitive science at the University of something in Germany, who was not involved in the work. So this is said by a person who was not a part of the research. These results, he says, show just how important such research can be for real world use, etc., etc. Okay, great. Neuroscientists, psychologists, education experts work together in the new study to introduce. That's also more or less all right. Thereafter, it is all about the design of that research and what came out of it. So this is, I think, the only part where we had to probably pause and then think what it means. So let's see. Because it is unethical to shoehorn students into classes they don't want to take. When you shoehorn, you basically put a large number into a limited space, or you try to force an idea or a concept or a person into a group where it does not fit, where it does not belong. So basically what it says is that it is not right for us to force a student to take a subject that he does not want to, for research anyway. Now this is where a bit of a humor is snuck in. It is unethical to do that in research, but in life it is done all the time. How often do parents force a child to take up a specialization, take up a subject, even though the child may not want it? So the investigators took a different tactic. What? They created an option that you can take geospatial semester course. And then they matched them with those peers who selected a different but equally challenging science course, creating two groups that were as similar as possible. So if you want to compare, you obviously need to create groups which are similar, and that's what they at least try to do. In this way, the major difference between the groups was which course they had elected. So before beginning, they completed a series of tests, measured spatial skills, verbal reasoning ability. Then they hypothesized. Their guess was the students who took the spatial skill course might show up improvements in verbal thinking as well. They based this prediction on a concept known as the mental model theory, which suggests that human verbal reasoning abilities arose from brain areas that primates use for understanding their spatial environment. And then, after the 346 students in the study completed their classes, they took their tests again. Researchers compared before, after, and out of these 346, for 63 of these students, they also used brain imaging to track activity during both testing periods, before and after, with a focus on the brain regions linked to spatial thinking. They then compared how well imaging predicted improvement on the spatial and verbal reasoning tests with how well traditional performance-based tests captured it. And then the finding. The students in the geospatial class started out with lower reasoning and similar spatial thinking scores, but after the geospatial course ended, the students in that group had improved significantly more than their peers on most of the measures. So that's basically it. So let's start with the first question, where the answers given to me were mostly B. Okay. So what does the question ask? All of the following statements, if true, could be seen as supporting the arguments in the passage except. Now, mentally think of except as not. So you can remove except and put this not elsewhere. So can I put this not here? So one of the following statements, if true, could be seen as not supporting the arguments. So three of these are going to support what the passage says. One will not. Which one? So you chose B. So let's start. Neuroscience research is costly and may not have any discernible benefits. Is this consistent with the passage? Yes. Look at this particular part here. Considerable upfront investments without knowing what the societal benefits will be. So you may get benefits, you may not get benefits. If this is true, this strengthens, this supports, and therefore this is ruled out. But only one person got this answer right, and that was Prithvi, who chose D. And that's the correct one. Nobody chose A or B, A or C, so we can ignore it. Look at D. Spatial skills and verbal reasoning skills are distinct from each other, and improvements in one skill does not mean improvement in the other. If this is true, then it goes on to weaken the author's argument, where they said that, hey, spatial skills come from that same region. So if you improve in spatial skills, you should also improve in verbal reasoning. This contradicts and should therefore be the answer. So, Prithvi, good job. Here is question number 2. Which one of the following statements, if true, could be an accurate inference from the first paragraph of the passage? So, basically an inference question. Which of the following can be concluded, but then we've been limited to one particular part, one particular region. Okay, which region? First paragraph. So let's revisit the first paragraph. Let's just go ahead and read that again, and then we'll come back. So conventional testing can underestimate a student's learning ability. Here are the reasons. Sociocultural barriers, test anxiety, different in rates of brain development. In principle, neuroscience tools might better characterize learning gains, but then they've never been paired fruitfully in the past. So let's start. The options that you guys gave me were you gave me A, B, C, D. All the 4 options were picked up. So let's start with A. So in an inference based question, we go to the options and start applying true, false, can't say. So A, educationists have always been skeptical of the ability of neurosciences to foster better learning among students. Do we know that on the basis of the first paragraph, can I say that all educations have always been skeptical? I'll take you back to the paragraph. The only thing that I see is neuroscience and education have not always formed fruitful partnerships. Not always. It means that maybe there was some instance or instances where they did form fruitful partnership. It could be because the educationists decided to give neuroscience a chance. So can we say that A is true? Our label will be can't say. Okay, B, the beneficial aspects of neurosciences in education were previously not known. Yeah, how do I know? How do we know that the benefits were not known on the basis of the first paragraph? Merely because something was not done, does that mean that we did not know about it? What if right now I tell you that, hey, exercise has tremendous benefits for you? Now you know. But does that mean that you exercise? Does that mean somebody who does not exercise does not know about the benefits? So we may have known about the benefits, yet for some other reason, possible that we did not choose to use those. Then C, neurosciences may be better able to signal learning than traditional testing. True. The second last sentence of first paragraph. And D, neurosciences would definitely be a better testing tool for learning abilities than conventional testing methods. Definitely. The paragraph says it may and not it is or it will. So that is what makes even D a can't say, and that's why the correct answer is C, and that's the one that was chosen by Yashika. Huh? So considering that only one person got first and the second right respectively, one person each, I could at least remember the names. Okay? Yamini, yes, we need to train ourselves to think in a very precise manner. Question number 3, I'm starting with the question. None of the following can be inferred from the passage except. So, none basically means what? Not one. And I already told you that except is also not. So, let's cancel out this not with this other not. So, the question becomes one of the following can be inferred from the passage. So, which one? So, we're looking for the one that can be inferred, or in other words, maybe one of these is true and the rest of them are can't say and false. We're looking for the one which is true. So, A, neuroscience tools could lead to more cost-effective learning programs. True. Why am I saying that? Let me take you back to a part of the passage. Here. Here you go. If something gives you the biggest learning bang for the buck, if you get the maximum bang for the buck, it means that it is the most efficient way. So, using neuroscience can be the most efficient tool. And when you say efficient, what do we mean by that? Being cost effective. So, that's definitely right. B, due to the usage of neuroscience tools, the geospatial class scored higher marks in reasoning than their peers. Dude, reasoning versus verbal reasoning. So that's point number 1. For the timing, even if I say that it was verbal reasoning, do I know that they scored higher marks? Let me take you back to the passage and you'd be surprised to see what happened. So what happened? So people who used geospatial learning, they started out with lower reasoning marks. It uses reasoning, let's stick to reasoning, lower reasoning marks. But then the students in that group had improved significantly more than their peers on most of the measures. It was their improvement which was significant. So imagine there is this person who took geospatial course, there is a person who took science score. The initial reasoning scores were 5 and 10 respectively. At the end of the program, his score went from 10 to 12, whereas this guy moved from 5 to 9. So he improved significantly more. If you look at it in percentage terms, his improvement is significantly more. Right? He improved by 80% as compared to 20%. But from this, can we say that his marks were higher than the marks obtained by the other group? Are we sure? So this higher bit is something that we cannot be 100% sure of. They improved more does not mean that they managed to cover up the entire gap and went on to score more marks. See, quicker learning becomes possible more by using neuroscience tools than by using conventional testing. Can't say. Why can't say? The entire passage, nowhere in the passage are we talking about the pace or the speed at which people learn. So we have no data to back quicker. D, neuroscience tools are yet to be tested in other areas such as science and math. We don't know. All we know is what is given in the passage. Whether they are tested in other areas or not is something that cannot be determined. So A is the only option which is true, and that is why A should be the answer. Right? And here comes your fourth question. Which one of the following statements, if false, could be seen as best supporting the arguments? Now, The moment I read if false, it means that I need to take the opposite of every answer choice. So I'll read A, take its opposite, and then look for the implication on the passage. That will be very lengthy. So I prefer that we change this false into true. How? Now false basically, if I change this into true, I just need to add a not somewhere else. So which one of the following does not support the argument in the passage? Let's start with A. Let me look at your answers as well. So nobody chose B, so I'll ignore that. I got A, C and D. So A, conventional testing methods are quicker. Do we have anything? Does the passage make any claim about the speed at which people learn? No. So this quicker makes A irrelevant for our argument. Let's look at C. Rates of brain development are equal or the same for all students irrespective of socio-cultural groups. So the author cited rate of brain development, the difference in the rate of brain development as one of the factors that can lead to underestimation of learning ability. Has the author made any comment about or has the author established any link between the rate at which your brain develops and the sociocultural group that you belong to? No, the author has not even established any such case. So if you negate it, it will do nothing to the argument. This will remain irrelevant. D, improvements in spatial intelligence will not cause an improvement in other learning areas. Now, if this is true, this goes on to weaken the idea established in the last 3 paragraphs, where we have very clearly said that when you improve in geospatial, you also improve in verbal reasoning. So this weakens. So A, B, none of you chose B, so I ignored it. A and C are irrelevant, but D weakens. So does A support? No. Does C support? No. Does D support? No. But which of the following should be chosen as the best one? I mean, if I'm looking for something that does not support, then irrelevant options versus weakening options, weakening option will be even better. And that is why the correct answer is D. And there were 3 of us who did get it right. Khusu, Boon Chaudhary, absolutely you got this one right. And Yashika, although she was not very sure of her option, her choice here, but this did turn out to be the right answer. So that's our passage and that's what I had brought for you. If you happen to have any other questions, feel free to drop it in this Telegram group. And before I sign out, change your life today. Do not gamble on the future. Act now without delay. So you want to bring a change in your life? You know that you can make that happen through your actions. So make sure that your actions are consistent with your goals. And if you do that, that'd be absolutely terrific. Okay, now somebody asked me, do we have these classes every day? Yeah, we take a lot of sessions for you on our YouTube channels, MBA Wallah as well as MBA Wallah English. You can go to the community section and figure out the schedule. Additionally, this is called a CAT Practice Booster batch. You can go to our website or the app, look for batches and you'd find this batch for free. You can enroll. And the benefit of enrolling is that the moment you enroll, it's free of charge. You don't pay any money. You can check the weekly schedule at a glance. Plus, after every class, you also get some extra practice material. You can access it only if you are enrolled in the batch and are accessing it regularly. So you can figure those things out there. So between MBA Wallah English and MBA Wallah, you'd easily find some session or the other taking place every day or almost every day. And then somebody else, I don't know who, asked me, should we be retaining everything that we read in a passage in our mind? Not everything, but you are supposed to generate or make a mental overview of the passage, and that's ideal. Then somebody asked me about how do I increase my reading speed? Yeah, I've taken sessions on that. So you can probably Google and watch those on YouTube on our channels. Okay. This is one more RC passage. Yeah, I created only one for you guys today. And that has almost taken 40 minutes of our time. But I'm sure I'll keep bringing more and more passages. Gradually, as we move forward, we will push up the difficulty levels. we will increase the amount that we practice. All of that will happen in due course of time. What about classes for Ignite Batch? Kusu, Ignite Batch has started last week. They started with, in fact, the batch has already gone through, what is the day today? The batch must have gone through around 6 odd classes by now, so you can definitely join in. Okay, so let's pause here today and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep working hard and don't forget that your actions will change your life, will create your future.